Let's set up your environment. Now in this flowchart, I will be walking you through how to set up your environment, the tools that you need to get the job done. Now, in setting up your environment, we're going to be considering two separate services, or should I say tools? The first one is going to be a text editor. Now, you need to understand that in terms of text editor, different people have different text editor framework that they tend to use. See text editor as a place where you're going to be interacting with your code. It's an avenue or a software that allows you to edit your code. Now, in terms of this text editor, we have different kind of text editor. We have VS Code, we have Sublime, we have IntelliJ, and we also have Vim. For the sake of this setup, we're going to be experimenting on. We're going to be setting up VS Code as our default text editor. And then once we are done with that, the next thing we're going to be doing is we'll be setting up our GitHub environment. Now let's start with VS Code. To get started with VS Code, a much easier thing you can do is setting up. Just type download VS Code. To download VS Code, this is what you see. You click on this, and then on my device is Mac, so I'll be downloading Mac VS Code. If you're using Windows or you're using Linux, you can download the equivalent package. Let's wait for it to download. Once it's done downloading, you can click on it. Then you're going to see something like this. Now, for Mac user, all you have to do is click and drag into your application folder, and this automatically install the application into your application folder on your Mac device. For Windows user, you should see an installer. So once you double click on the package, the installer is going to install it and follow the prompt that is going to show. For Linux user, you can install it by using your terminal. Now, once your VS Code has been installed, now let's set up our VS Code. It's very essential for you to understand your VS Code environment, and I'll be walking you through how to understand your VS Code environment. Okay, the first thing you need to do is you can create a new file or you can open a new file. But in this case, we're going to be setting up a new workstation or workspace. Or in this case, we can also click on open. Now, when you click on open, you can click on a new folder. Let's call it my workstation, or you can call it my VS Code, all lowercase preferably. My VS Code workstation. If you click on create, it's going to create this in your folder, and you click on open. Then you have it right here. You click on this. Trust the author of all files in the parent folder, Tolu. You say, yes, I trust the author. Now, as you can see here, my workstation shows up here as a name, and this is also equivalent to the folder on your device. Now we can create any files of our choice. Now here, let's split it. Let's call this miscellaneous. And then you can also create another file. To create a new file, simply click on this icon here for clicking on new folder. If you click on that, you can then specify learning. If you to create a file nested inside this learning folder, you can click on this and it's going to generate a new file. Let's call it test.txt. Alternatively, you can right click and select new file. You can also refresh to refresh list of all the files. And then you can also click on this to collapse any open nested section. So this is how you set up your VS Code. Now, the next thing you need to do is we need to now understand how can you set up an agent, an AI agent that is going to help you in working with your file system. Now, this is very essential but for the sake of setting up your environment, we're just going to follow through with how to link your VS Code with your GitHub repository. To do that, go to GitHub. I already logged into my GitHub. For users who are not familiar with GitHub, see GitHub as a place where you can store your code. That is a layman basic explanation of it. And GitHub pride themselves as the future of building, where the future of buildings happens together. That is largely because if you create a GitHub repository, you can collaborate with different people on the internet and also with your co-workers and with your friends by building an impressive software. And all the code will be shared on GitHub. Now, this is a visual representation of that. Imagine this is GitHub and this is you. You're writing your code. You can push your code easy to GitHub. Now, let's say you have a friend. Your friend is called James. James would like to contribute on your project. You can give James access to your GitHub. James can also contribute the code to the GitHub. So you have a visual representation of your code. James can also have a visual representation of his code on GitHub. And then there are a whole lot of other people on the internet that might also want to contribute on your awesome project. We can call them contributor. Now these people, or let's just do this. Yep. They might also want to contribute on your project. Now that is one of the benefits of using GitHub. Additional benefit is, let's assume you mistakenly delete your code. You can also retrieve your code on any accidental deletion. Now this is done. We've downloaded our VS Code. As you can see, it is fairly easy and straightforward, which is this. The next step is setting up your GitHub environment, and we're going to link our GitHub environment to our VS Code. This, let's call it done. VS Code done. This is pending. We give it blue. Now to do that, you need to sign up an account, sign up a GitHub account. Either use your Google or your Apple. Specify your email, your password. Yeah, I would just say my email as google@gmail.com. Yeah, I'm going to specify my password and then specify your username. Let me do my key. I'm pretty sure this username is taken. Oh, see, it's taken. Mikey 0001 is not available. Interesting. Let's try Mikey Interesting. So the name is Mikey Interesting. Oh, it's available. Then you specify your country. If you're in the US, if you're in Afghanistan, you're in Nigeria, you're in Argentina, you can specify your country, or Belgium or Belarus. You could also specify if you like to receive occasional updates. GitHub tends to have a couple of interesting updates. So I recommend you subscribe to their marketing email so that you can receive those product updates. Then you create your account. Luckily for me, I already created an account and I'll be sharing that with you. This is my GitHub account. Now let's get started with connecting GitHub with our VS Code. To do that, and there's something called repository over here. This is where you create like a bucket where your code will reside. Let's call it my first build. You can give the description, my first build. Also, you can also specify the visibility if you like it to be open to the public or if you want it to be private. Public, anyone on the internet can see the repository. You choose who can commit. For private, you choose who can see and commit the repository. You could also add a README. README are basically files. They have longer description for your files, for your project. You can also decide to turn it off. If you turn it on, GitHub will automatically create a README file for you. If you turn it off, it won't. For the sake of this setup, we're going to turn it on. And you can also add git ignore. Git ignore are basically files that allows you to ignore what kind of file you don't want to commit to GitHub. For example, your secret files. Also license. You could also decide what license you want to specify. Most projects tend to have MIT license, Apache license, and also Creative Commons. For the sake of this setup, we're going to choose no license. Now let's go ahead and create it. Also, the owner of this repo, as you can see, I am DevCore HQ. Now let's proceed. You create repository. Your repository is being created. Yay, your repository has been created. Now you just created your first GitHub repository. That is awesome. Now the next thing you need to do is, how can you bring your repository into where? Into your VS Code. This is your VS Code. How can you bring your repository here? Now to do that, there are a couple of interesting things you could do. First thing is, you have to determine where in your VS Code would you like to bring your application or your code base that you're trying to work on. So let's assume you're working in a company or you're working on a side project. I like to structure my code properly, and this is my structure. You can take the structure. The first thing I like to do is I like to separate my code here. Now let me create it in the root of my workstation. If you notice, if I click on folder, it keeps showing learning. Why? Because when I click on this, test is being highlighted. What you need to do is minimize this. You can click on this empty section here, right click, new folder. That's it. Then you type the folder, you create the folder work. You click on it again to unselect anything that was previously selected. You can click on another folder called personal. Now there's a separation. You have your work folder and your personal folder. You also have your miscellaneous, and then you also have your learning folder. This allows you to separate your application, your code, your project into different folder and categories. It's better structure and much easier for you to work. Now here is a learning. We're going to be creating our folder in the learning folder. So if we click on this, you right click, open in integrated terminal. You click on it. Yay, your terminal shows up. Now this is your terminal. To verify your current location, you're going to click on PWD. PWD is going to show you your current working directory. As you can see, I'm currently in my workstation learning. If I click on ls, oh, I can see my file. Ls simply means you want to list the files in your current directory. As you can see, you have a test.txt file here. Now guess what? We would like to bring the code in our repository into our local environment. This is local environment because this is your computer. You are currently working on your computer, and you like to have the code that you have in your GitHub on your computer. Now to do that, you go back to your GitHub, go to your repository, which is my first build. You click on code, SSH, HTTPS, GitHub CLI. SSH is highly recommended because it is much more secure. As you can see, it says you don't have any public SSH key in your GitHub account. You can add a new public key or try cloning this repository via HTTPS. Now it's giving me an option. I could either decide to clone it by using HTTPS, or I could just add my public key. Now it's essential for you to understand the difference. If I use my HTTPS, let's do that. I'll be able to clone the repository, okay? I just copied the command, you paste it here. Oh, excuse me. You copy the command. Now to clone it, GitHub have their own naming nomenclature. In order for you to bring a code from GitHub, which you see online, into your workstation, remember this explanation is for you to set up your environment. You type git clone. Clone is a way of taking a code that you're seeing on GitHub. You want to clone it on your computer. You type git clone, you paste the link, you press enter. What can you see? Remember, this is a new account, and we need to address this issue. Whenever you see this error, all you have to do is you need to set up your personal computer. As you can see, Xcode select says note, a developer tool were found requesting install. If developer tool are relocated at a non-default location, you need to install the developer tool. Now let me do that, and then we're going to resume. Okay, it has been installed. Now let's do it again. Git clone. Let's clone the repository. As you can see, the repository has been cloned. You have your code right here. That is good. However, there's a limitation around using HTTPS in cloning your repository. And the limitation is you can clone the repository, but guess what? Any changes you make in your GitHub, you will not be able to push any code to your GitHub. So now, in order to bridge this gap, you need to have set up your GitHub account so that you can add a public key. To do that, as the first time user, you see this. You click on it, it brings you here. For existing user who already have a GitHub account, but I'm unsure how to navigate their way, let me show you how to do that. If this is what you're seeing and you're not seeing this here, to navigate your way into creating that, all you need to do is click on your name here on your profile, scroll down to settings. You see SSH and GPG key on your left side. Now this section here is essential for you to familiarize yourself, but for the sake of this walkthrough, it's set up your environment. So let's go to SSH and GPG gen. Now the next thing you need to do, you see, is similar to this. The next thing you need to do is you need to add new SSH key. Now for this new SSH key, I'm going to be calling, you can give it a name. You can call it my computer or my personal computer. And here, you need to specify the key. Now, specifying the key is very essential for you to understand that you need to specify the key, you need to generate a key. Now, there are two types of key that you can generate. We have a modern system key, which is what is recommended, and we also have a legacy system key, which is like a fallback. Most systems today tend to use the legacy system key, and in order to do that, you type SSH on your computer, keygen. Now you type -t RSA -b because we want the key to be properly encrypted. So we're going to use 4096. Now your key is being generated. It's going to ask you enter the file in which to save the key. You just press enter. You can also specify a passphrase, but most for the sake of this setup, just press enter. You don't need a passphrase. Now your key has been generated. Now guess what? I generated the key in the root account, but I do not want to use the root account. If you make this mistake, you spell by creating it in a root account, don't worry, you can do it again. Let me copy this. I'm going to paste it right here. Now the key is being generated here. I just press enter. And how did I knew that I was in the root account? I saw this right here. Okay. Then let's proceed. Now that has been generated, now let's specify our public key. If you're using Mac, you can cut, then you can do tilde//.ssh id.pub. That's the public key. Press enter. This is the public key. Now for Mac users, there's a shortcut. Just put pipe pb copy. This copies the output into your clipboard. It makes it much easier for you. But for Windows user and for Linux users, you have to copy this. Then you come over here and then you paste it. And then you add SSH key. See here, it has been added. Now if you go back to your VS Code, if you refresh and try and add SSH key, you see the warning is gone. Now that is done, Now the next thing we need to do is let's remove what we just did and let's reclone it. pwd, let me type ls. To remove the folder, you type rm, which is the remove dash rf. My first build, the file is gone, as you can see. Now let's clone the file again. Git clone, you paste down the SSH URL, you press enter. Are you sure you want to continue? You type yes. Then you type, let me clear this. Let's make a change here. Hello. And this is a file. I type hello. This change has been saved on my computer. Now, if I want to push this change to GitHub, the first thing you can do is you can type git status. Oh, excuse me. Git. You see, when I type git status, it says fatal, not a Git repository or any of the parent directories.git. Now, if you're seeing this error, the first thing you need to do is you need to check your working directory. pwd, I'm currently learning. Where should I be? I should be in my first build. Now let me cd, which I want to change directory. Let me increase the font. I will close this. Let me expand this to the side. Click on terminal. Then the first thing you need to do is you need to cd into my first build. Let me clear this, type this. And then if I should run the command again, git status, you can see this. Now, why were you seeing that error? The reason you're seeing that error was because you haven't initiated a git directory in that directory you were previously in. Remember, the directory I'm currently in is my first build. The directory I was in before is if I type cd space dash, it takes me back to where I was before. If I just type ls, and if I want to have a wider understanding of my current directory, you type ls space dash larh. It gives you more context. As you can see, is the name, this is a group. This is when these files were created, as you can see. Now, if I go back to the directory I was in before I came to this directory, cd space dash, enter, my first build, as you can see. Now, let me type the same command, ls dash space dash larh. Here, you can see there is something called git. It's very essential for you to understand what this does. This simply means this current directory as git has been initialized in this current directory. That's what's happening here. Now you can also have a sneak peek of what is going on inside this folder. You type ls dot space dot git. You can see these are the files in it. Then you can explore, you can check the logs, you can check all this interesting information here. But for the sake of this conversation, let's focus on setting up our environment. To clear all this up, you type clear, it clears it up. Now let's type git status. As you can see, it shows that not changes, not stage for commit. Now, if in order for you to commit your changes, you type git add the name of the file that you like to push. You type enter. Then once that is done, you put a comment to it. You type git commit -m, double quote. You put any comment. In this case, I'll type my first awesome file. Now here you can see that it tells me that this is in my first awesome file, committer, this is me. The name that I share with this computer, your name and email address was configured automatically based on your username and hostname. And you can also feel free to edit this information here. Now the next thing you need to do is you need to push your code to GitHub. Git push. Now this is very essential for you to understand. Now git command is something that it can be tricky, but then you need to understand how to push your code. Now I'm going to use a very basic one, which is going to be the git push -u, which is the origin, and you would like to push your code to the main branch. You will type this, it pushes the code to the main branch. And if I should refresh my screen, you can see this was 17 minutes ago. If you refresh your browser, you can see 1 minute ago, my first awesome file. If you click on the file, you can see my first hello. And if you go back to your VS Code, you can see it right here. Now, what this simply means is now you have successfully set up your VS Code. You have also successfully set up your GitHub environment. Yep, and you are all good to go. Now let's get started.